মাঝে মেডিকেলে আছি, পেপার টেপার পেতে আমরা শুয়ে আছি। হচ্ছে আমাদের অবস্থা এখন খুব খারাপ। হ্যাঁ, জল টল ঢুকে পুকুরের অবস্থা খুব খারাপ।
Water gushed into low-lying regions, inundating several villages. Power supplies were cut off. A West Bengal official said he had not witnessed a storm like this before. Authorities warn it will be a huge challenge to maintain social distancing at shelters against the backdrop of COVID-19. Ania Pune in New Delhi tells us how relief efforts are faring in the wake of this cyclone.
Well, for the last few days, the focus really was on evacuating as many people as possible, and it was a race against time. There were more than 1.5 million people evacuated along India's east coast, many of them in the states of West Bengal and Odisha. But in the aftermath of this cyclone, as it moves northwestwards towards the state of Jharkhand and eventually towards North India, where it's likely to weaken over the next 12 hours, the focus is now shifted to relief operations and rescue operations. We're now seeing thousands of army personnel as well as the National Disaster Response personnel teams on the ground who are rescuing stranded citizens. Many villages, about 1,000 in the state of West Bengal, have been inundated. Many of them have been cut off. And the government, they're saying about 50,000 people have been rendered homeless in the aftermath of this cyclone. Similarly, in Odisha as well, many coastal regions saw extreme inundation, widespread flooding because of tidal waves that were as high as 14 feet. So the focus, officials say, is on rescuing citizens who are stranded in these regions, getting food and aid to them, ensuring medical aid reaches those people who've suffered any kind of injuries in the aftermath of this cyclone. The government in Odisha also promising free food grains to villagers who've been impacted by this cyclone for the next 1 week. Of course, there was extensive preparation, which is why officials say that the loss to life from this cyclone has been minimal, but it will take several days to ensure that normalcy returns to these regions.
And the latest COVID-19 numbers out of India, the country has recorded more than 3,800 deaths and more than 210,000 cases. This takes India's total confirmed cases to 27.3 million. The death toll is at 315,235. The effect on Cyclone Yas is also being felt off the coast of Sri Lanka. It is hindering efforts to put out a fire on a container ship burning in waters off Colombo. Authorities have warned people against picking up debris from the vessel as they may be hazardous. Fire has been raging on board the Express Pearl since last Friday, destroying some 80% of the containers that the boat is carrying. Darshana Ashoka Kumara reports on the firefighting efforts so far.
The major challenge is that the roughness of the sea because of the Yas cyclone of the Bay of Bengal. Sri Lanka Navy and the Sri Lanka Ports Authority have deployed their tugs and Bell helicopters and all other equipment to douse the fire, but still it is going there. According to the latest reports, that the fire has spread closer to the main control room of the ship. Authorities are taking measures to prevent some damages that could cause to the people there, and authorities stated that they issued strong warnings against them not to touch these items because that could be dangerous and because of the heavy chemical situation. And no information has been found about how to tackle this problem because this the acidification of the seawater is highly possible with this leak, because we do not know what is the actual situation and what is the amount of leakage or what is the quantity of leakage. Still investigations are going there, and fishermen have been asked not to go fish in seas near to these areas because of the debris and all other chemical equipment, chemical items and all other substances.
And your Asia Business Update is coming up next with Christine Chan. Industrial profits in China jumped for the month of April over last year. Still, the pace of growth is slower compared to March. And French energy giant Total finally succumbs to pressure to put a cash squeeze on Myanmar's military government after it seized power in a coup in February.
From the top stories in Asia
A quicker, portable way of testing for COVID-19 in just 5 minutes.
to breaking news in the US and Europe,
US President-elect Joe Biden is set to formally introduce his top economic team.
with an eye on markets opening across the world.
Wall Street's major indices all closed the month with double-digit percentage gains.
It's the one bulletin that offers you a global perspective. World Tonight, daily on CNA.
The internet, it's contributing to global carbon emissions.
This is like the iPhone of 1902.
We collect information from the landscape.
She's my wife. She's dying. Please help.
It's majestic.
I finally made it to the realm of the gods.
What would recipes from 100 years ago actually taste like?
Hello, model. Sabi ito mga sakila ng taon.
These animals can carry infectious diseases.
But what if we could go wherever we wanted without leaving the house?
They should never have really stayed on board.
This June, Asia's past, present and future comes together. Race to feed the world as scientists, farmers and entrepreneurs solve the impending food crisis. Journalist Yu Maraki unveils the transformation of Japan's social and political identity in Deciphering Japan, and relive the history of the Chinese Communist Party as it marks 100 years of existence. This June on CNA.
To understand the Philippines, one must understand the Filipino people, scattered throughout more than 7,000 islands. Resilient, fighting for better lives, even if it means making a living thousands of kilometers away from home. Their faith and sense of community keep them strong in the face of adversities. The Filipino spirit of Bayanihan never wanes.
Welcome back. Well, profits at China's industrial firms are said to have jumped today 57% in the month of April from the year before, after nearly doubling, as you recall, in March. So it is a much slower pace of growth from what we saw earlier in the year. That was when expansion was supported by the low base effect from 2020 with the spread of COVID-19. Now, manufacturing profitability last month was capped in China by high commodity prices and a weaker performance in the consumer goods sector. The Chinese officials say that some of the consumer industries are not yet back at the pre-pandemic levels, and they warn the foundations of economic recovery for China are not yet secure. There's been uneven improvement in corporate performance. China's economy is expected to moderate this year after logging record growth rate in the first quarter. Now, bilateral trade talks between the U.S. and China have resumed once again. China's Commerce Ministry confirms the U.S. Trade Representative did speak with China's Vice Premier Liu He over the telephone. And the ministry says that exchange between them was constructive, pragmatic, candid, and based on mutual respect and equality. Now, both these trade negotiators also underscored the importance of a bilateral trade between them. The U.S. and China are due to assess the fate of their so-called Phase 1 trade agreement. That was agreed in January of 2020. And under that deal, the U.S. Trade Representative, together with the Chinese representative, would be meeting once every 6 months to discuss the implementation of the deal. Catherine Tai previously said she expects China to live up to its commitments under this 2-year arrangement, and the path forward for the future of their trade ties will hinge on whether or not that agreement has been effective.